Joseph Decker here. A little bit of a different setup. We've not been here back at home in a while, but we're here today. This is a virtual episode. I'm joined by our amazing guest, Stephen Smith, today. But we also got our co-host, Brian Alexander, back today. He's not going to be able to probably stay on here the whole time. He's a little busy right now, but he wanted to tune in and say some things, chirp in on some things. So as usual, I'm going to go ahead and go on the social medias to make sure everything is up and running. Everybody has the ability to get on here and watch. I want to thank everybody for tuning in here today. Last few days, we've been giving you guys some unique time frames. So sorry about that. A lot of them in the day while people were at work, busy. So, but we should be back to normal from now on. Tomorrow, we'll actually hit you guys with an episode at 10 a.m. with Mr. Gary Key, Edmonson County legend. I want to get our guys in here as early as we can so we can talk to them. So let's go ahead and talk about our sponsors. I'll go ahead and throw the sponsor wall, the famous sponsor wall up here. And I'll tell you guys a little bit about them all. Number one is our show sponsor. That is Kayaks and More. Kayaks and More is a mom and pop shop located on Highway 259 in Bee Spring, Kentucky. They can provide you with all your outdoor needs, and they truly excel in kayaking, with a lot of their equipment being used worldwide. Contact 270-286-7001 to get in contact with Kayaks and More, or text or message Kim and Tony Polson. Next up, I'd like to talk about our local plumbing business in CNA Plumbing. They are located in Brownsville, Kentucky. They can cover all your plumbing needs at a very affordable price. The two guys that head on that is Adam Coates and Craig Childress. As you can see on the screen, 270-246-3303 is the number to contact them. Next up is Patton Funeral Home. Patton Funeral Home is a local funeral home business with locations in Cave City, Park City, and Brownsville. The phone number to contact them is 270-597-2136, or contact Andrea Brantley. Lake Forest Recruiting Firm and Braden's Blessings is up next. Lake Forest offers part-time or full-time permanent placement for psychiatrists and psych nurse practitioners. We work diligently to find our clients and the candidates the perfect fit. That is my man, Jay Holland. Braden's Blessings is a local charity by Allison and Jay Holland. They honor the life of Braden Combs, who tragically lost his life in 2019. They are the best charity. They do so much work all around the statewide, not just staying in Edmonson County. They did some great things for Edmonson County as of recent when we were doing the prom. They got a lot of dresses, clothing to donate into that. So that was amazing. Next up is Corey Colberth at Kentucky Farm Bureau. Contact insurance agent Corey Colberth for all your insurance-related needs. He is located in the KFB building in Brownsville, Kentucky. The number to contact him is 270-597-2127. Next up is H&K Construction, Consulting and Management. We do custom homes quality you deserve at the price you can afford. 270-791-2288 is the number to contact them, or use Alan Keppel. Make sure to check out their newest Facebook page, which is H&K Construction, to follow them and show support. Shauna Gravel Realtor. Shauna is a local realtor who is a part of the Gravel Group in Keller Williams. Her office is located in the Keller Williams building across from the Green River Apartments. Her easiest way of contact is 270-246-1329. Laser It. Laser It is a laser engraving service who can make and produce just about anything. They do excellent work on hats and have made some amazing batches. Also, check out their cutting boards, work on baseball gloves, and really so much more. They can make just about anything. Follow them on their Facebook page and contact them through Caleb or Scott Skaggs. Last but certainly not least is our guys at Sanders Radiators in Bowling Green, Kentucky. They're an automotive and repair service, An easy way to contact them is 270-843-1772 or Dusty Wilson. They can get almost all your work done at a very affordable and great price. Folks, we are 2 minutes into the show here. Just got done with our sponsors. Let's go ahead and tell you guys a little bit about today's episode. This is episode 3 or 4, I believe, of the Edmonson County Legends series. And today we have Stephen Smith. Stephen Smith he played basketball at Edmonson County from 1995 on to 1998. He would average 10.4 points and 6.8 rebounds in his senior season, and he would be offered and he would go on to play at Bethel College in Tennessee. At Bethel, he would go on to notch into their Hall of Fame. He would score 1,281 points and pair it with 650 rebounds. Stephen is very loved and respected by many in Edmonson County. A lot of people were very pumped up and ready for this episode. One of my great friends, Joey Logan, shout out Joey Logan, gave me this idea for this episode. So let's go ahead and welcome him in. We're also going to be welcoming in our co-host, Brian Alexander, who you can now see on the screen. And there is our guy, Stephen. Stephen and Brian, how are you guys doing today?
Doing great. Doing great.
Yeah,
Doing awesome. Appreciate the invitation to get on tonight.
Hey, no problem. We love to have you here. As you can see, Stephen and Brian are a little bit related, actually. Brian's name today on the show is Stephen's little cousin. So that's something good to pair it off with.
Little, but not older. I am older, but I am littler.
Yeah, let's make sure and get that clear that Brian's definitely older.
Oh, Brian, I'll let you go ahead and kick us off here if you have anything to say or maybe a starter question for our guy, Stephen.
Well, Stephen's been more of like my little brother than he has my cousin. If you knew our family when we grew up, it's like we had 4 mothers. My mama had 3 sisters, and all of if Stephen's mama told me to do something, it was just like my mama telling me to do something. And I spent a great deal of time with Stephen's mom. She's not with us anymore, and miss her every day. But Stephen's more like my little brother than he was my cousin, and I hope he learned. I know he probably learned some things he shouldn't have from me, but I hope he learned a few things that he should do in life from me. But Stephen's a great guy. He is proof that you can go on and have a great career after high school.
Yeah. So, Stephen, I want to go ahead and open in with some questions. Where in Edmonson County did you grow up? And in your elementary days, where did you attend school? Some friends you had back in those days?
So as we were talking about earlier, for anybody that knows where Brian lives, I actually grew up, I don't know what, 150 yards from where Brian is, had his house, and right there in kind of in the corner. We were in Edmonson County. A lot of the farm was in Butler County, and our address was Caneyville, Grayson County.
Yeah.
So we were kind of in that corner, and I went to Kyrock Elementary School. My kindergarten year, I think about 8 of us rode in a Volkswagen Beetle with Brian's dad, Charles Alexander. He was the PE coach at Kyrock, and all of us loaded up in that Volkswagen Beetle. And I guess there was Kevin and Sarah, me and my sister, and I don't know, I guess Brian was driving by that time, but that would have went back to the old Kyrock before they rebuilt it. I don't know what year. Brian, you may know when they rebuilt the school there at Kyrock and tore down the old part, but I was probably...
It was the late 80s, I think, when that happened.
I would have been one of the last classes that went through the old Kyrock Elementary School.
So, Stephen, going in a little bit too. So, after elementary school, obviously, you have middle school, 5, 6 center. Did you participate in any sports in middle school? Obviously, sure you played basketball, but was basketball always the only sport for you?
For the most part, yes. Through Little League, played over at the ballparks over there at Highway 70. Going back to, they called it at the time Peanut League, and then up. You got to move up to the second field there in Junior League, and then you really arrive when you got to go up on the hill. Yeah. Played baseball through Junior Pro. I actually, if I look back and think about it, I would kind of almost like to see what would have happened if I would have stuck with baseball. I never did get into it in high school, and after Babe Ruth League kind of got out of it, I really always enjoyed pitching, and that's probably something that I did pick up with Brian. That Brian went and got to play at the next level at Campbellsville. And I realized early on that I wasn't a hitter, and I didn't know that you couldn't. I didn't realize that you could still play baseball and not be able to hit. You could just focus on pitching, and I knew I couldn't hit. I always had the mindset that I made up my mind before the pitch whether I was going to swing or not. And that doesn't bode very well when you're playing baseball. But that's one thing in my sports career. If I could have stuck with it, baseball, a little bit longer, and just to see if that pitching thing would have worked out. But obviously, the basketball thing worked out okay, and was able to played my first competitive year was in Junior League. I guess I was in 6th grade, and go back to Uncle Charles. He was our coach. There were some guys on that team, Mickey Johnson, Jonathan Vincent, Chris Helson. But that was my first exposure to playing team basketball outside of just playing in PE at school. And I told Brian and Bill Lee a couple months ago at a ball game. I always remember Uncle Charles. One of his things he taught me, or he said that I remember, is we were getting beat at halftime, and this was the old middle school, which used to be 6th, 7th, and 8th. We went down in those locker rooms down underneath the far side bleachers, and I can still remember sitting in there in that cold, dark, nasty looking locker room with a toilet sitting out in the middle of the room. And we were like, I don't know, it was like 20 something to 4. And Uncle Charles had this comment. He said, I could stand at half court and drop kick 4 points in, and that's all you guys can score in a whole half. So that was my first exposure to hearing coaches kind of try to motivate you in a different way. And then went on into middle school. Actually, Sonny Pruney was my 7th grade coach. And then Tracy Meredith was the 8th grade coach. And I grew, I don't remember exactly, but somewhere between about halfway through my 7th grade year and my freshman year, I grew about 6 inches. I went from 6 foot to about 6'6" in about a year and a half. And then ended up growing a couple more inches. So coming up to 6'8", I always heard people quote Adolph Rupp, if you're less than 6'6", you have to prove you can play basketball. If you're over 6'6", you have to prove that you can't play basketball. Yeah. So I guess I never proved to anybody that I couldn't play. So had some great opportunities through playing hoops. Brian, I don't know.
Guys, I got to jump off. But Joseph really drilled this guy. He's got some good stories if you can just drag them out of him.
Okay, I will.
If I can jump back on, I will. Love you, Stephen.
All right, buddy. Love you too. And really, even through high school, that growth spurt of 6 inches in just a short period of time really made me really clumsy. I'm still clumsy today, but even through high school and into my first year of college, I had one college teammate that referred to me as the mop because I spent more time on the floor than I did standing up there in my first year of college. But finally was able to get my feet under me and get a few things figured out. But yeah, I would say my dad, he was never really into sports that much. He always supported me. He always came to the games, but sports really wasn't his thing.
Yeah.
So Brian and Jason and Kevin, Brian's brothers, I always idolized them, looking up to them playing sports. And then obviously their dad, Charles Alexander, was influential early on.
Yeah. I was unfortunately never really able to meet Charles, but Charles, I've heard some great stories on him. He's a legend around here. So much stuff he did. If he was still alive today, he would without a doubt have a spot on here with me on the show talking about some stories and things. And that drop kick thing you mentioned about scoring 4 points, that had me rolling up there. That was good. That was funny, man.
You know, just even going back to the Sunfish days, which would have been a high school before consolidation kind of came into the county, and he would talk back, and a lot of those guys that he coached at Sunfish, some of which were pallbearers at his funeral, and you know they still refer to him as coach, and his legacy certainly continues to grow or continue to go on there in Edmonson County in the sports.
Yeah. So high school, you played from 1995 to 1998, which I mentioned at the start for Edmonson County. I mentioned a little bit on your senior year, your stats, but talk about those freshman through junior years, growing, developing as a basketball player, getting better, and finally getting to that level where you could go on and play collegiately.
I really, just to be quite frank, I've looked back and watched some film. I wasn't very good in high school. I was clumsy and, for a lot of different factors, just didn't really get it all going. But my freshman year played, obviously, freshman and JV. Daryl Meredith was my freshman coach, and Daryl is now one of the coaches at Grayson County for their boys. And Scott Key was the JV coach my freshman year. Then my sophomore year moved up to JV and varsity. Don Cruz was the JV coach, and Rick Houchins was the varsity coach for the rest of my high school career, and really just I remember had a few games that stand out. The first dunk that I got in competition was my senior year at Hart County. And there was a little guy that may have been 5'4", and he was about that wide. And I'd love to know who he is because I'd like to go back and talk to him. But I went up and dunked it, and I got fouled.
Yeah.
And I was so pumped up that I got fouled. They called the foul, and I banked in the free throw, which I think is always pretty funny and kind of indicative of my personality on the court, just really goofy. But and then that same week, that was on a Tuesday night, that same week at home, this was my senior year against Barron County. I got another dunk. And, I don't know how much you remember back through Edmonson County. There was a few guys when I was younger, probably around Brian's age, that could dunk, but you didn't see it very much. And that was really a cool thing and really got pumped up. And that was the only 2 dunks I got in high school.
Yeah.
Even though I'm 6'8", I can't jump I couldn't jump very well. I had a couple steps of running, but those are some of the things that stick out. And I was telling you, before the high school career, that I guess those memories have faded as time has gone on more. But the guys off the court still keep in touch with some of the guys and gals in a text group that I went to high school with and keep up with them. Actually work with a girl that I probably was in kindergarten together. Our offices are across the hall from each other, and a lot of great friends and a lot of family that I'm still close to there in Edmonson County, and those ties still bind.
Yeah. So speaking on high school, who were some of your teammates? Who were some of the guys you got to share the court with?
Yeah, so my sophomore year, there was a pretty big class, and a couple of the guys I don't remember because they moved in, but the guys that were seniors my sophomore year was Matt Richardson, Jeremy Salings, Jason Webb, and Jason Klein. And I know I'm leaving somebody out, and if any of those guys are watching, I apologize, but they were the ones that were seniors when I was a sophomore. Then the next year, my junior year, there was a really big group of guys that was a year ahead of me, and most of them ended up stepping away from playing ball. But my senior year, my junior year, Rocky Tyree and Eddie Simon were the seniors that year. Rocky, I think, had a really good high school career. I don't know if you know that name very well or not, but
I'd had some people mention it. They said he was a great athlete back then. But
yeah,
really got to chat with him.
Yeah, Rocky was really athletic for his size and had a pretty good career. Then my senior year, and it's odd because the guys that I played with in middle school, all of them stepped away and none of them finished out. I was the only one that was really from. There was 4 seniors my senior year, and I was the only one that was from Edmonson County that stuck with it and played all 4 years of high school. Those guys, Alan Ramey. Alan moved in my freshman year, and Alan was probably a better baseball player than he was basketball. D.W. Cruz, his dad, came in as the baseball coach our sophomore year, and D.W. Ended up playing. And then probably a name you're familiar with, Michael Skis.
Yeah.
He came right after. We were talking about Wes Vincent earlier. Michael was the running back after Wes. And,
yeah.
If he hadn't been playing behind Wes for a few years, he probably would have had some of those records because Mike, phenomenal athlete, maybe went to the state in the triple jump or something like that in '98, and unfortunately I'll see a couple of those guys every once in a while, but don't get to stay in touch with them. But we were thick as thieves there. Then some of the guys that were behind me. I was thinking when you called me a legend, I don't know if I would agree that I'm a legend or not, but definitely the only person that I ever played with that made a career of playing sports was Joe Blanton.
Yeah.
I know you had him on a month or so ago. Joseph played basketball up through during that time. And then Jonathan Williams was eighth grade and freshman when I was a junior and senior. Probably will leave people out. Brandon Jaggers, Chris Helson, and my mind goes blank on who some of those other guys were that were a year or two. Kyle Pierce,
Yeah.
still plays a big role there in Edmonson County. Just really good friends with those guys, and you become like brothers when you're on a sports team, and just really think a lot of those guys even still today.
I have to ask. You mentioned Jonathan. Did you guys ever get to share the floor together? Because that would be scary for the opposing team, man.
Well, you would think it would have been at 6'7" and 6'8", but I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he would agree with me. Is we didn't have the best high school career. We could talk about a bunch of factors on why, and we could just be making excuses. But we were on the floor a lot my senior year when he was a freshman, and you really would have thought that 6'8" and 6'7" in our area in high school would have been more successful, but we just simply weren't.
Yeah. You speak on success a little bit and mentioned that. When you were at Edmonson County those years you got to play, was there any, district championships, region appearances, things like that you guys got to experience?
No, actually my sister was the same age as Brian's younger brother, Kevin. They won the district in 1993.
Yeah.
And I still remember going to those games and ended up probably could have gotten to the state had Warren Central not been so good that year. But that was the last district title, man, up until after 2000s, I guess. We got beat in the first round of the district every single year. And one story I'll tell on Coach Houchins, I don't know if he's listening or not, but it's something that sticks out. It's not a very complimentary story of him, but I will tell it. We're sitting in the locker room at Barron County my junior year at halftime, and we're probably down a dozen, 15 points, something like that. And I remember Coach Houchins, and this may have been my senior year at home. I don't remember exactly which one, but I remember Coach Houchins talking about we really needed a sense of urgency. And I thought right then, I'm thinking, Coach, we're about 16 minutes away from our career being over with.
Yeah.
And you're right now just bringing up a sense of urgency. Maybe we had this talk back in December or November or whenever we get ready, but we had some great times playing ball, but unfortunately we just weren't very good.
Yeah. I'll ask because a lot of people, they love stories, and I do too. I like getting to hear and some of the things happened in the past. Is there any other stories or great memories you have while playing high school basketball that you would like to speak on or mention?
Yeah, some of the funnest, most enjoyable times that we had as a team. And I don't remember if this was Coach Houchins was friends with somebody or who he knew, but we always went to team camp down at Tennessee Tech in Cookeville, Tennessee. And it was away from home for us for a few days. And, looking back on it, I think while we were there, you felt like you were there 6 weeks, and we may have been there 5 or 6 days. But we would, we were serious. We would play ball, but then we would get together and go to the pool or get together and run around campus. And those were some of the most enjoyable times that I remember really off the court because you build that connection with those guys that you play with. And I would say those team camps down at Tennessee Tech was probably the greatest time.
Yeah. We'll transition a little bit, though. So the high school career was over. That senior year, like we said, you'd get to average 10.5 points, almost 7 rebounds. You would go on to sign and play at Bethel College in Tennessee. I wasn't as familiar on Bethel. I'd heard about them, obviously, did a little research on them. But speak a little bit about Bethel, what they offer, where they were located and things like that.
So I wasn't heavily recruited. I had gotten a few calls from a few people. Had went to an exposure camp before my senior year and had gotten some letters and stuff for that.
Yeah.
But ended up actually, it's a crazy story, but it just speaks to the way God works things out.
Yeah.
Bethel, at the time, Bethel College, now Bethel University, it was associated with the Cumberland Presbyterian Church. And that was the type of church that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Our church choir had went to sing at a revival at another sister church. And the guy that was preaching the revival, a guy by the name of R.B. Mays, after the service was over with, he walks up to me and he kind of looks up at me and he says, "Man, you're a big tall guy." He said, tell me about yourself. I said, yeah, I'm a senior in high school and don't really know what next year plans. And he said, well, I'm pretty good friends with the coach down at Bethel. Would it be okay if I gave him your name and number and had him to give you a call? And, at that time, I really didn't know if I wanted to continue in college or not, but I was like, sure, that'll be fine. I'll talk to him. So the coach who had been at Bethel for a long time, his name was Mike Nienaber. He was from Cincinnati, and he called me and went down a couple times that spring, I guess. Went to a workout, went to a academic scholarship competition, and met with the team, and it ended up just working out that they were able to put a package together. And being in the NAI level, they get creative in the way that they work the scholarship packages. I got some money through the church. I got some academic money, and then was able to get some basketball money. So ended up, thankful to the good Lord that I got my college paid for with very little expenses along the way. So I have to go back and I have to say thank you to R.B. Mays for starting that connection. I had heard about Bethel, obviously, through the church, but really didn't know that much about it. It's in McKenzie, Tennessee, which is about 45 minutes south of Murray. So it's kind of in that northwestern corner. And, I'm from Big Reedy, Kentucky, and had never been away from home more than 3 or 4 days going to team camp at Tennessee Tech. And it was kind of it's kind of funny. I've told this a little bit tongue in cheek, but when you grew up the way I did, and mom and dad were always so supportive of us and really spoiled us and took care of us. And when you go away to college and you have to start washing your own underwear, your eyes get open to a lot of different things. So played there for 4 years and ended up having a pretty good career. One thing that's interesting, Coach Nienaber had been at Bethel for 15 or 16 years. So he gets a different, he gets a job offer at another school. So he leaves after school had started my sophomore year. So we're about 6 weeks until official practice starts and the coach leaves.
Yeah.
So they kind of scrambled to find a coach. And I don't know if you'll know this name, but maybe some of the people will. A guy by the name of Cal Luther. He was a coach at Murray State for quite a while and had just retired from University of Tennessee Martin. That was just the next town over from Bethel. So they contacted him and asked him to come and coach. What was funny was Coach Luther forgot more basketball than I will ever know.
Yeah.
And he passed away a few years ago, but he had 494 wins in his career. So he comes in, 494 wins. So he comes in, and that year we won 6 games. So his last game, which was a consolation game at the conference tournament that I think they only did just so it would give us another opportunity to win a game to get him his 500th win. He knew he was only going to be there for a year. And then my junior year, a guy by the name of Jeff Britt came in as coach at Bethel, and he ended up staying and is still the coach down there today and has some really, really good teams. But having 3 different coaches in 3 years is really, really tough. And I always talk to kids about that. You're going to have things come up, adversity that you're going to get kicked in the teeth, and you just got to keep going. But that was a big challenge for us. My college career is trying to learn a new system, and Coach Luther came in. He ran the Princeton back door, which that Princeton kind of put in this back door thing, and extremely complicated. And the post player plays more out on the floor.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I'd never done, and I probably had 3 or 4 assists in high school, and probably that many other than my sophomore year at college. But extremely complicated. Coach Luther told us one time, and I always think about this. He said, "This game is supposed to be played by athletes, and we just don't have."
Yeah.
And that was indicative of our record that year, only winning 6 games. But Coach Brick came in and put some things together, and we ended up having a really good year my senior year. We won 25 games my first 3 years total.
Yeah.
My senior year, we won 24. lost 11, and went to the Sweet 16 of the NAIA Division II National Championship, which was kind of the pinnacle of my career.
Yeah. And I'll ask, you mentioned that the Sweet 16 of that NAI level, where were those played at? Where did you guys have to travel to play in those games?
The national tournament was in Branson, Missouri,
Okay.
College of the Ozarks,
Okay.
where the school was. And really, we not enjoying any success hardly at all. And excuse me, my senior year came out and had a really good year.
Yeah.
Coach Brett had done a good job of recruiting a good mix of guys that had skills and guys that had talent, and brought us all together, and we had a pretty good year. A name that's some people probably recognize, Desmond Allison, who played at Kentucky.
Yeah.
He got into some trouble and got removed from the school, but he went to a NAI school down in Tennessee. Martin Methodist was the name of it. Just probably the best player that I was ever on the floor with. And one of my guys was talking to him during the game, and he said, "Man, you're playing in Rupp Arena last year, and this year you're playing at the NAI level in these podunk gyms." And he said, "What's the difference?" And I always remember what he told us. He said, "You guys have skills." He said, "The skills that you all have as far as your moves, your ball handling, your shooting, those are the same skills that the guys have at big-time D1s." He said, "But when you get to that level, all those guys are strong. All those guys are fast. They're quick. They're athletic. And that's really the separation." And I think it was to our benefit. We all knew, that we were playing basketball so we could go to school.
Yeah.
We were going to school just so we could play basketball. We were there to get an education and get to play ball along the way.
Yeah.
So that was just kind of an added bonus. But yeah, that's my senior year, getting to win the conference tournament, and then getting to go on and play at the national level was just a phenomenal experience, and just a great way to wind up my career.
Yeah. So I've seen the plaque you had sent me. I believe it was 2012. Was that the year that you were entered into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, the guy that I played with all 4 years of college, his name's Matt Rooks. Matt is from Cincinnati, Ohio. He went to Moeller High School. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's just a hotbed of, their Hall of Fame is literally guys that are in Athletic Hall of Fame. Barry Larkin, Ken Griffey Jr., just those guys like that from Cincinnati went to this all boys school. And Matt and I played all 4 years together. Matt ended up with about 2,200 points in college. It just was about 6'3", not super athletic, really strong, pretty slow, but just a phenomenal player at our level. So I get the letter saying that I was being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I was like, "Yeah, this has got to be a misprint. This should have went to Matt."
Yeah.
Without he had been inducted at the same time that I was, and we were just like brothers the whole time we were in school, and still stay in touch. Not so much now, but have stayed in touch along the way, and just built some phenomenal relationships. Those guys that I played with in college really are the ones that I stay more in touch with now, and they're spread out from Ohio to Texas to all over Tennessee. A couple guys in Kentucky, and we get together whenever we can and spend some time together.
Yeah. I'll pull up my question sheet real quick again to look at some things. I want to take a little bit of a time to thank you. You mentioned some teammates you got to play with, some guys you were surrounded by. Been talking to a lot of people. They talk about the practices you guys go through, you don't see, the practices, the spring trainings, the things you do in the weather. You don't see that on camera. You see the games and things like that. You mentioned having a bunch of different coaches while at Bethel. Were you really dealt with, were the coaching changes? Did you ever get guys who was more compassionate, easier, kind of listen to you guys, things y'all had to say? Did you have the coaches that were kind of hard nosed, push things on you, didn't really listen to things, didn't listen to criticism? Were you blessed with having a coach that really got to build a bond with and understand a lot of things with?
Yeah, my junior and senior year with Coach Brett, I really kicked it off with him really, really well. Coach Nienaber, my freshman year, he had ran his course there at Bethel, and you could kind of get a sense that it was his time to move on. and really didn't bond with him really well. Coach Luther coming in for a host of reasons, just didn't really have a ton of, not a lot of love lost there. But Coach Britt really, he did, in my opinion, he did it the right way. He recruited hard. He trained us hard. He got us in good shape. And he would look for strengths that the players had. He would build off of those instead of force feeding a system like with Coach Luther. And no disrespect to him, because he came in, 3 weeks before practice starts, and he's got a bunch of raw guys that know nothing about a complex system. So we didn't have a whole lot of conditioning time. We have to run in and start learning this offense. But Coach Britt was really the one, and I still stay in touch with him today. He was the one that I really bonded with the most. And then, as I was telling you off air before, he convinced me to stick around for another year after I graduated and become a graduate assistant. And I learned real quick, in order to be a good coach at that level, and really any, obviously, college level, but you have more help. I mean, he was pretty much a one-man show. You got to do it 365 days a year. And I just realized that wasn't the path I wanted to take. So spent another year really more than anything goofing off. My wife tells me that's what God was doing with me for a year while she finished up school, so we could get together later. But yeah, that graduate assistant year was fun, but coaching wasn't really for me.
Yeah. So being the graduate assistant, how involved were you, would you say, with practices, games, talking to the players, building bonds with them?
A lot of the guys that were still on the team were guys that I'd played with.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was really the good cop, bad cop, and I got to be the good cop because I already had a relationship with a lot of these guys. I'd already played with them for a couple of years, and that was kind of my role. Was kind of in charge, not really in charge, but did some of the scouting reports and the recruiting, or the scouting of other teams that we played and stuff. But really, at that level, just the difference between what I see now that goes on at a high level D1 program and the way it was with us is, again, we were playing ball just so we could go to school, and we really understood that, and the next level was off the table for us, and we understood that. So pretty well balanced in our lives. My wife gets tired of hearing about this, but I always said that it was just like a job, because there weren't any restrictions in the NAIA like there is in NCAA as far as practices a week. Preseason, we'd have weightlifting at 6 a.m. We'd have individual workouts sometime during the day between classes. We would then have conditioning after classes in the afternoon, and then he'd get us back together for study hall. So we always laugh. These 4-a-days kind of stink pretty bad, but that's what it took, and it paid dividends for us.
Yeah. I want to transition a little bit back to Edmonson County a little bit, your time there. After your career at Bethel, what did you go on to do after that?
I came back home after the graduate assistant, moved back in mom and dad's house, and ended up getting a job at a bank out in Caneyville.
Yeah.
Worked there for 8.5 years. A few months after I'd worked there, I met my wife on November the 9th of 2003. We got married November the 6th of 2004.
Yeah.
So we hadn't even known each other a year when we got married, and moved to Litchfield. Ended up transferring to the Sicilian Bank in 2011, and am working there still today.
Okay. And we spoke a little bit about it beforehand. You now have a daughter. She plays basketball for Grayson County. Joey Logan, that I told you kind of got a lot of this in hand, told me a little bit to do this. He wanted to say, I could speak to you about your experiences playing basketball, but I could also speak to you on things of being a father and, being able to help her out in her career.
Yeah.
Have you really took like kind of a trainer role at times, helping her out, teaching her things on basketball?
When my kids were little, I always, and I guess after I got done playing and a little bit while I was playing, is I always saw parents that just forced it on their kids to be athletes. And it was really important to me because I was able to fulfill all my dreams, got to play college, got to play at a national level in a national tournament. And I wasn't going to be that dad that really forced my kids to play. My son, who's 17 now, he played a little bit in junior pro. And after a couple of years, he just kind of realized sports wasn't his thing. And I was always fine with that.
Yeah.
I know people would ask, well, does that break your heart your son's not playing? I was like, no, not really, because that's just not his thing.
Yeah.
So Hannah came along, and she started showing some interest pretty early on. I've got a picture of her in her first, I guess it was her first junior year team that she was maybe, I don't know, 6 or 8, and she's already a foot taller than all of her other teammates.
Yeah.
And I show that picture, and I'm like, see if you can pick out which one of these girls is mine. And Hannah kind of fell in love with basketball. She is grown now. Hannah turned 14 back in November. She's about 6'2", maybe a little bit more in her shoes. Just going into her freshman year this coming year. She had a little bit of a setback this year, had a torn ACL, and is dealing with the therapy and recovery on that. But I try to work with Hannah a little bit, but she kind of doesn't really care to listen to what Dad says. She went to work out with a travel team back, I don't know, a couple of years ago. And she comes home, and I was asking her, I said, well, how did it go? What did they tell you? And he said, well, he told me a couple things. He said, and she'll kill me for saying this because I know they're watching right now. But she said, he told me I needed to jump rope to get my feet better. And then there was something about my shot that he told me that I needed to work on. And I can still remember my wife. She looked at me and she said, isn't that the things that you've been telling her? And I said, it's word for word exactly what I've been telling her. But she was ready to listen to somebody else and not Dad beating on her about that stuff. So I want to support her and want to, help her fulfill her dreams. But I understand she's going to take probably coaching from other people a little bit better than she does from Dad. So I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Speak back on to Edmonson County. Like I said prior to that, I want to go back there a little bit. I've never actually met Coach Houchin. I've never really got to talk to him, sit down, chat with him. You spoke a little bit about him, some things, but can you tell us some things about Coach Houchin's? One thing we love to talk about is, how practices went, how they were in locker rooms, off the court. Speak a little bit about Coach Houchin.
Yeah. So Coach Houchin, he had been there. I don't know when he started, early 90s, I guess. And I can remember he always at practice, he would have a piece of paper with the practice schedule listed out. And it's funny, some of the things that you remember, he always had it folded long way, and he always had it tucked in the back of his shorts.
Yeah.
That's where he kept his practice list. But it was always really structured. And I remember, it was on a time, and you did this drill for so long, and you did that drill for so long. He instilled fear in us to realize that you can't screw up off the court because that's going to make you not able to get on the court. And I respect him for, that ability to keep us all in line from, really doing something stupid. I don't remember any of us ever getting in any real trouble, especially during the season, because that bench can be a really big motivator to kids that want to play ball. So his structure in that, he probably had more success earlier on with the teams that he had, and not so much with us. But I remember I hated practice. I never was the guy that actually just couldn't get enough of basketball. By the time the season was over with at the end, I was ready to step away from it for a while. And I know with some of us too, we worked on the farm during the summer. We'd go to a couple camps, and then I would stay away from it. And I probably could have been a whole lot better had I worked at it more, but I had to get away from it and give time to work with the dairy cows and hauling hay and cleaning out calf stalls and stuff like that. And that was kind of my training, I guess you would say, in the summers, more so than having a ball in my hand the whole time.
Yeah. Sticking kind of more with Edmonson County, Brian told me, he said he wanted to get as many stories out of you as I could. Is there any good stories you want to talk about between you and Brian? Because, when we talk about Edmonson County legends, I'm lucky enough to have him as my co-host, but Brian, truly is one himself, the things he's did around the community, now being the superintendent, going on to Campbellsville to play sports. He was a pretty good basketball player himself, you could say.
Yeah.
What's some memories and bonds and things you can speak on with Brian, since we're not able to have him here right now?
Yeah, of course, growing up literally a stone's throw away from
Yeah.
Brian, he really was like a big brother. When he started teaching in Edmonson County, and I don't know, I was probably a sophomore, junior, maybe a freshman, sophomore, before I could drive myself. Me and my other cousin would ride to school with Brian, and even though Brian was some bit older than us, it was kind of fun because he'd kind of act our age and be a little, he would maybe tell some off-color jokes and stuff that we could laugh at that probably we wouldn't hear mom and dad say, but enjoy some humor from Brian. And I helped Brian on his farm a lot. Growing up, I remember a couple different times. I think he had a hernia surgery and had to be laid up, and I fed his cat. I don't know if you've ever heard this story or not, Joseph, but Brian was building a barn and he nailed his foot to the floor of that barn. Have you ever heard that?
No, I haven't.
So Brian was he worked in construction some, so he pretty crafty at framing and doing stuff. But the way I understand it is he had a nail gun in his hand, and of course his hands were sweaty. He was sweating. It slipped out of his hand, and he went to grab it, and he grabbed it. The trigger hits his toe,
Yeah.
or the money end of that thing hits his toe, and he grabs the trigger, and it sticks it right through his big toe.
Wow.
Um, Probably some other careless stories about Brian that I won't share, but yeah, growing up with him it was just awesome to have him to look to, and Brian was always, I think, either my first or second time going to Bethel. Brian went down there with me. He rode with me, and mom and dad had a dairy farm. It was tough for them to get away because you had to milk the cows every day.
Yeah.
He was always willing to help, and just a great supporter. And then as he became more of a prominent role, I guess he was the principal after I left. When I got my 1,000 points in college, he brought me back at Christmas that year, because we would typically get a week and a half, 2 weeks off at Christmas, and did a recognition for me at a high school game, which was really cool, and just really appreciate the support that he gave, and hopefully he gets to live through some of that stuff in the next 4 years with Will.
Yeah. Well, I'll stay a little more back into Edmonson County. You talked about, your dunks against Hart County. Is there any more, kind of standout games in your career, or some moments you had, like best scoring games, rebounding games, stuff like that, accomplishments of yours in some games you'd like to speak on?
I think that game against Hart County, I had 22, and I really think, even though that's not that much of them, that was my career high. Maybe had 20 against Barron County one time. But one of the most memorable games was in the Class A, I guess it was a Class A regional tournament. We were playing Metcalfe County. And Metcalfe County had a guy by the name of J.P. Blevins that went on to be played at UK. And in our area, probably the best player that I played against. And I remember we went over there, and Coach Houchins was talking about, JP's going to have his. We can't do anything about that, but let's just stop everybody else.
Yeah.
So I think they had a couple of guys maybe go off for 15 to 20, and they just beat us pretty good. But I remember, and I think I remember this correctly. In my mind, this is the way it happened. It may not be true at all, but I think I blocked J.P. Blevins twice that game. And had I have not done that, we held him to 44 points. He would have had 48 if I hadn't blocked him twice. But some of that stuff that I kind of remember more so about. I'll tell you one more funny story about college. My career out in college was 30, and what's just amazing, and it kind of sums up the way that I played. I scored 30 points in the second half.
Yeah,
I got and I don't know if things like that are kept in the record book, but having 30 in one half, I got 2 fouls early on, and my coach usually would set you out in the first half if you got 2 fouls, and I had to sit for a long time. Came back and got 30 there in the second half. But as far as just really good statistical games, I go back and watch some of that stuff, and I look at the way I was playing then and some of the things I was doing. I'm like, man, that's just horrible. I should have been doing this. Like I was always swinging my arm trying to get a block every time, and if you'd have just moved your feet and got over there better, you could have been a lot more effective.
I'll ask you this. We're tuning in on 50 minutes here. What is something I like to always ask someone this who is an athlete? What's some advice you would give to a younger student? So let's say freshman, eighth grader, going into their high school basketball career. What's a piece of advice you would give to them and something to kind of stick with during their time?
The first thing is it's not going to be easy. Coach Ouchin's always had this saying. He said, if it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
And I see now a lot of kids that, whether it's social media or just the society, when they come up upon any type of adversity, they just back up and quit.
Yeah.
And I think it's tough for kids. They are exposed to so much more than what I was when I played and when I was in school. But just the advice that, hey, you're going to have some days where it's going to be tough. You're going to have some days where you don't want to get up and run those wind sprints. You don't want to lift weights. But the relationships that you will develop with those people that you play with, I thought about this a lot in my position now with the bank and kind of being a manager over a few people. And you can tell really quickly the people that have been a part of a sports team and the ones that haven't. Those lessons that you learn of being a teammate carries on through in your career. And it's vital to realize, I can't do it all myself. I've got to lean on other people. And that would be another piece of advice. Don't try to do it all yourself.
Yeah.
Realize you have teammates and realize that they have a skill set too, and learn those skill sets. One of my favorite things to look at now, and even watching with Hannah play, is you can tell players that have played together for multiple years in a row and how they respond. And it's almost as if they know where their teammate's going to be before they get there. Just appreciate those bonds that you make. Appreciate the time that you have in high school, because it's the most free time in your life.
Yeah.
You have to get out and go to work every day the rest of your life, and enjoy that time as much as you can.
Yeah. Stephen, I don't have any more questions written, but I want to always ask you if there's anything else you want to speak on, anything that comes to your mind, any stories you have to tell before we get off here.
Well, I just hope everybody in Edmonson County forgives me for moving up to the horrible, nasty swampies up in Grayson County. My wife tells me I'm a swampy, and I contend to this day that I am not a swampy.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's rolling her eyes right now, listening to that, shaking her head, saying, "Yes, you are." But it is fun watching that rivalry from the other side. And I got to be on air with Sam Gormley and K105 doing games this year for boys and girls basketball, and those Edmonson County games were the most fun.
Yeah.
When I was in high school, we were still in the fourth region, and Grayson in the third region, and that rivalry it was still big. But today, when they're in the same district, man, it's heated, and that's football, baseball, basketball, soccer, academic team, band competitions, whatever it is. You want to beat that team, as much as anybody. So that rivalry, I look forward to. With Jonathan's daughter, Carrie Ann, who's a phenomenal high school player, and really impressed by watching her, and getting to see a couple girls in our area that are 6'2" go at each other. I think is really going to be fun with Hannah and Carrie Ann, and they've kind of struck up a friendship, and they text and stuff with each other. So I'm excited to see Hannah get back to her full potential here this year, and get into pretty good shape, and kind of get to bang with Carrie Ann a little bit. I think it's going to be a fun time.
It will be. I want to bring back, though, now that you mentioned, I want to think about it. Who were some of those in the fourth region? Who were some of those guys you kind of rivaled with? I've always heard, Barron County be mentioned. You guys kind of went at it with Barron.
Yeah. We were in a district at the time with Barron, Glasgow, and Allen County, Scottsville. Now, earlier in my career, my sophomore year, I think it was, Scottsville had a phenomenal team. They ended up going to the state that year, and they were just really, really good. heavy senior laden team my sophomore year, and was just flat good. Barron County was always good. But after those guys left at Scottsville, we were able to get them a few times here and there, and we could compete with Glasgow. But I don't know if I ever beat Barron County or not. And then we would go, down to Bowling Green. This was before the days of South Warren and Greenwood, Warren Central, Warren East, Bowling Green High. Seemed like year in and year out, all those teams were good every single year. We competed with, obviously, against Butler County and could beat them some. Russellville had a couple really good. They had some kids that were, their last name was Key. He was my age, Thaddeus Key, and he's the only person I ever saw get a dunk in a JV game.
Yeah,
just a absolute crazy athlete.
Yeah.
They had a couple pretty good teams down at Russellville. Metcalfe County, we didn't play as much because they were farther away. Hart County, they were in the 5th region, but we still play against them, and all the teams in the area there. Franklin Simpson, we competed with Franklin Simpson. Todd County Central. That was about the time, I think, the Wells kid that played at Western.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
That would have been early on in his high school career, but you could tell at that time he was going to be something special for them.
I'll ask this. You spoke on Grayson County, the rivalry. You said it kind of toned down a little bit then, but it was still alive. How was the matchup history when you got to play Grayson County in high school? Did you guys typically come out on the winning end?
No, I don't really, going even back to middle school.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever beat Grayson County.
Yeah.
And I always remember, even going back and kind of thinking about that, I don't remember them ever having a ton of skill.
Yeah.
But they just had guys that played hard.
Yeah.
A couple pretty good players. A guy that was a year behind me, Daniel Ferris, I think maybe he went to play at Campbellsville or something, and he was pretty skilled, but they just got after it.
Yeah.
That was something that I've noticed at Grayson County, even through today. There's just a mentality that the kids play hard, whether they've been blessed with a lot of ability or not. They get after it, and I would rather have a kid that has a ton of ability that doesn't work at it. Give me the kid that doesn't have the God-given skills that's going to be hard-nosed and play, and they'll be the ones that come out on top.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that too.
Yep.
Stephen, I've kept you here for 57 minutes. We got to talk about your earlier career at Edmonson County, some stories growing up, you going into Bethel, your career accomplishments there, and kind of stepping away, your future career now. I want to say you're welcome back anytime in the future if you'd like to come back on. You said you did a little bit of work with Sam and them in Grayson County, so if I ever need another guy to chirp on here and be a co-host, I'll reach out. I want to say thank you, though, for coming on. Like I said, you're always welcome back. I want to let the people know, if you're just now tuning in, you can always go back and watch this. These are all posted back on social media, so they're rewatchable whenever. Tomorrow we have an episode bright and early at 10 a.m. with Gary Key, and then later on 5 p.m. with Wes Vincent. Today, though, as you can see, I was joined by the great Stephen Smith. Thank you, Stephen, for tuning in here today. We're going to go off air now. I'm going to turn this off. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. God bless.